Hello everyone, this is Philip with an evening update. I'm sorry it's so late for you locals who are waiting up for this. Let's wait for a connection to establish here and welcome you guys. So I'm going to update you guys tonight on the new photos released by Scott Wilson of Aloha Skies Aviation, as well as go over some of the morning photos by Bruce Omori of Extreme Exposure Fine Art Gallery. And as well, we'll talk about some of the maps that we see coming through. So welcome you guys. Just getting started. Sorry it's taking so late, but I have an evening update for you guys on the path of the flow now that it's left this channel. So maybe we'll bring Kaikan on here if you can. I'm not sure if he's able, but hi guys. So welcome everybody. Welcome Scott. Thanks so much for sharing the photos with us tonight. Maybe we'll start off with photos that Scott has shared with us this evening, which have got me in a bit of a sober mood here tonight. Sorry it's taken so long, but we kind of had to compile things and kind of check everything and see what's going on here. And let me just jump into it. We'll show you some pictures again, but let's just get into it. So this is our latest photograph, taken just before dark by Scott Wilson of Aloha Skies Aviation. Thank you so much, Scott. What this is showing us is a view to the south, looking towards the area of Kīlauea and Secrets and Ahalanui. They're all in this area right in here. And what you're looking at right here is the edge of the, we'll call it old flow, even though it's really only a couple days old. It's the older flow. And the new flow that's coming out tonight is this one right here. That's the new flow that's emerged and covered most of this area down here since this morning. So the bottom line, the reason I'm maybe not sounding so peppy tonight is it looks like this flow is now within a mile of Kīlauea, within a mile of the warm ponds and the secret surf spot. And at the rate that it's moved, it's looking like it may get there sometime tomorrow morning. So, given the slope of the ground here, there is a slope that goes down that way. There's some slope that goes this way as well, but this thing is so wide that no matter what happens all through here, it has to end up going down to the warm ponds, unfortunately. So let me show you guys the photograph of where this flow is coming from. Here it is, a sunset view by Scott Wilson of Aloha Skies Aviation. All right, so you guys can see a couple things. The main channel coming from Fissure 8, which is still reestablished all the way back up through here. There had been an earlier upper blockage farther up in an area over here that has already cleared. It's back in its path all the way down to here. But the blockage that went around Kapoho Crater, which is kind of right in here, this is the edge of it right in here. So we're looking to the west. The old flow used to come down this direction over here. And it was reoccupying that channel earlier today. But something has happened where most of that flow is pinched off. You see the flow up here is kind of stagnant. It's not even moving very much, right? It's not able to drain very quick. So whatever is blocking that channel, you know, maybe the opening wasn't that big. And you always have more of those blocks within the channel that could actually come down and clog that channel. So what's happened is all the flow from Fissure 8, almost all of it, maybe some's looking out, but almost all of it's now moving to the south along the west side of Kapoho Crater, Green Mountain. The flow front, here's another view of that flow front. You see it's kind of spreading out. There's a bit of a fire ahead of it over here in this photograph. Here's another view of it. you guys can get a idea of the size of this flow now, kind of in a dark image, how wide and big it is, and how much lava is pouring in there, and how it's pointing right at the area of the warm ponds down in here. You can see a little bit of glow from the other flow of where it's going in the ocean still. I saw a report earlier tonight that the ocean entry around Kapoho, like from the lighthouse down, most of that is actually quiet. There's not a whole lot of glow that I saw earlier. And there was some steam. It'll probably steam for a while. So, but almost essentially, we have a new path for all of our lava from Fissure 8. Is going down here, and it's going right towards Halanui, Kokala, and Secrets. So we've tried to think of, some way that this thing might actually maybe not get there. The only thing, we had some outside level of hope was that maybe it would hit like a flat spot and kind of spread out and build up. But, given the shape of the land there and the size of this flow, it doesn't look good at all. So the way that the rate of this flow's advance, it could be tomorrow morning, possibly early morning, that this flow is going to reach the shoreline over there. And when it does, it's going to bulldoze through all those spots that we love. So that's my report as far as that. Yeah, we will have new things that form afterwards, it's true, but I think we have to go through the loss first. I think it's okay to dwell on that a little bit here today. And then, when we're all through this and the other side of it, we can look at what we have that's new and precious and all of that. But right now we're looking at the descent map. This is the old, the most recent map data by USGS over here. This is the edge of what I'm calling the old flow, which is essentially like 2 days old, right? And the new flow is coming down. It's in an area right in here, kind of coming along the edge of this thing. You can see that the blue lines point that way, right? So the flow is actually going to try to get pinched against the edge of this, right? There's some other kind of flatter spots in here that kind of drain down before going sideways, but it kind of all pinches into here. And you guys can see a funnel straight down to Kokala. So it looks like tomorrow might be the day. Tomorrow might be the day that that area is covered in lava. It could be that the flow front is, wide enough that it actually goes all the way to the other side over here. So we'll have to wait and see how that actually goes. But yeah, it doesn't look that great for the warm ponds area, and yeah, I think now it's the right time to come to terms with that, because it looks like it's happening, and there's not much chance of anything different actually happening there. So let's compare this to some of the earlier photographs we have. Let me maybe first ask a couple of questions. Well, let's look at the earlier photographs also. That'll help explain what's going on with the progression here. So I have some photographs earlier from, let me see, here they are. This is a flow from this morning by Bruce Omori from Extreme Exposure. And it's looking at that same clog spot in the river. Here's Kapoho Crater, right there. Green Lake was in here. So the flow is getting clogged here. At this point, there is some still leaking out and through. Right, I'll show you another photograph that kind of shows that. You can see some red in there, but it's actually not a whole lot, and it's not moving very fast. Most of the flow is still backing up here. It's ponding in this area and likely spilling over in a spot right here. It may well have carved a notch for itself. It looks pretty well established by now. Either carved a notch or built itself up or somehow pushed this so it's got an easy path out of there right now. Easier than this way is what appears to have happened. So the flow front earlier today was farther up. You can see it's burning at the front. It's a big flow, right? Kind of spreading out here at the front of it. Look at the next picture by Bruce. There's a picture of Fissure 8 earlier in a steam, and it's showing the interesting phenomenon a lot of us have noticed earlier today. There's like a little not exactly a tornado, but it's like a funnel cloud, right? That's kind of temporary, might only last a minute or so, generated by the heat that this fissure rate's putting out, and this whole weather system that's developing above it. You really can't see in a photograph. So yeah, that's a fissure rate. Fissure rate is still pumping. You guys can see the channel is still quite full everywhere. I'm not sure if it's pulsing still. I would imagine it probably is. One thing that was interesting that the scientist Steve Brantley said today at the meeting is that about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the big collapse earthquake up at Halemaumau, there is a pulse, a pressure wave that comes through, and it have like an increase in the amount of lava coming out for a short time. So that's interesting, but secondary to what's happening right now as far as the impact on human life, right? So human enjoyment of Puna district, because it seems like by morning the hapans may well be gone sometime tomorrow morning. So this is a view looking down at the area that was blocked. So Kīlauea crater is right over here. Zoom out. There's the edge of it right there. It's kind of big and goes off like that off the image. So here's where it's kind of leaking through that kind of small area that by now seems like it's clogged. One really interesting thing is you can see that this stuff is moving more slowly. The way I can tell that even just from this one photograph is you can see that the crust is not a continuous snake line like we're kind of used to seeing when a flow is moving fast and that thing is just riding along like on a current. But instead you see it's actually hardened, has kind of hardened and formed slabs. And the slab at the front couldn't go as fast as it wanted, so it kind of got stuck. The one behind it got stuck behind it, and it's kind of made this giant, like a train wreck of slabs, which is pretty impressive. All stacked against each other, imbricated to be technical. And how they're all stacked, leaning on each other like dominoes that fell over in a pile. Yeah. So yeah, you can see this by looking at this. You can actually see that the flow is moving kind of slow through there, slower than it might be. So the channel is definitely not all the way full. It's in fact probably in a kind of still in a draining process. You know, there's some lava coming in here, right? But there's probably a lot of gooey stuff in there that's not as hot, right? Like the edge, the bottom edge of the channel on there. So in this photograph, there's still lava in the channel. But we'll look at one of Scott's photographs from tonight a little later. You'll see that there is actually not a whole lot of even glow from this part of the channel right now. I may have, I'm not sure if we showed this photo yet earlier. I'm not sure we actually did. But here is a view of the now 2-day-old flow as the world was going in the ocean. It came as far as starting to pour into this second bay over here, but the new flow is going to come down all across right through, you know, all through there. So it's not going. This thing creeping over to the side is not going to matter anymore. That's basically no longer an important consideration, considering a big flow front coming down from above in this direction over here. So yeah, these are photos by Bruce Omori of Extreme Exposure. He flew on Paradise helicopters, and this is the upper part of the channel. The upper overflow that happened. There were a lot of overflows that happened in this area right in here. Right? A lot of the silvery stuff is fresh overflow lava. But as you can see, the upper part of the channel, all through here, was able to clear out whatever blockage there was and reestablish the path through the channel all the way uphill towards Fissure 8 from Kīlauea crater. Another view of essentially that same thing. So everything's back full. You can definitely see some dark edges on the walls of the channel, right? So it legit indicate that it's not as full as it possibly could be, right? Or the other thing it might indicate is that those channel walls may have broken off. Yeah, so you might have more of a cliff in there and more debris within that river of lava as well. So yeah, we're back to Scott's photos. Let me finish going through the photos here. Here's a kind of a closer up view of one of these brush fires that's been started by the lava flow. Here's the actual flow front right here. And this is the edge of a burning fire ahead of it, right over there. And this is upslope of the Kīlauea area, right in there. So, yeah, that's, you know, that's the word tonight. Big flow that was hitting a barrier. It's not really leaking through there anymore, not really filling the old channel. It's instead made a big turn to the south. That flow has gotten established, and that is moving fairly quickly towards the Kīlauea area. So let's see one more photograph. This one is a view looking above, so the actual blockage we have is right over here. A couple of craters right in here. The new path, the flow of the new channel that's heading south is going that way. You can see how far it's gotten towards the coast already, considering this thing just started yesterday, right? So, and you look at this part of the channel over here, you see a little bit of glow. Then nothing, no glow anywhere in here. At the ocean entry, yes, so it's still kind of draining out when this is taken still, right? But there's almost no lava back in the channel. This whole area that was all pumping of lava for most of the last month now looks like it's, at least for now, cut off. And, you know, possibly it'll stay cut off, or possibly something can clear this blockage. It's hard to say. To me, though, the more blocks that are in the way there and clogging that thing, the harder it's going to get to clear it out, right? So, and now it's got an easier path going down this way. So to me, there's, you know, unless something else clogs farther up and diverts, which is likely to happen at some point, then this will likely be the dominant path to the ocean for the flow from here. So, and that's kind of the, you know, the other thing is we're not sure about these conditions, about the blockages, right? You know, blockages are actually happening. So yeah, and there once again is our flow map. So I haven't actually seen much about those earthquakes. I can look it up right now. Earthquakes, you guys are all feeling island-wide. I was going to talk about the summit a little bit, but let me pull up the earthquakes map here first. Pardon me while I do that. And let's see, what else can I show you guys here? Thanks for bearing with me. So let's see. Pull up my earthquake map here. It's still loading. Might be fighting for connection. So let's go ahead and try it again. Kind of looking at the list. Oh, no, it's definitely not updated. Give it a minute. Sorry guys, it seems like my thing's kind of a little slow right here. Let me see if I can get it to speed up at all. And get it going here again. So our big story tonight, you guys, is that the big flow that basically is diverted around Kapahua Crater, heading south along the west side of Kapahua Crater, is headed straight for Kīlauea, Secrets, and Halanui Worm Pond. Given the speed that it's going so far and how much lava is going in there, we estimate that sometime in the morning will be when lava flow is gonna overcome it. So let's see here. Turn my camera around. We have a map now we can look at here. So okay, what do we got? We got some earthquakes on the summit area, as usual, and then we seem to have a little bit of a cluster over here, and maybe these are the ones you guys are talking about that are deep. So let me look it up. Let me see Let me touch one of those and see what it says. That's the one that is 3.6 at 35 kilometers deep. Okay, so that's probably one of those candidate ones. And there's another one, 33, 3.6. And there's another one, a 3.1 at 32. And there's another one that's a 3.2 at 27. And that one is at minus 0.5, so that's something different. Let's try this one down here. That one is at 6.4 kilometers. That one's not it either. So we essentially have 4 earthquakes right in here that you guys have talking about felt, an ocean view. That one was reported at 10:05. That one at 10:06. And that one was actually earlier at 2:45 this afternoon. So there was one earlier, and then there's 2 more recent ones. So, okay, you guys, one thing that's interesting is, so the fact that the earthquakes are coming from that deep means that they can find a path, you know, like through underground all the way to Kona might be just as close as going to Hilo, and then going towards Kona, you maybe actually don't go through any magma to get there, possibly. You know, I haven't done a real 3D inspection of this yet. But as far as why the earthquakes are happening right here, we actually believe that magma coming up into Kīlauea comes from a deep conduit. The conduit isn't straight up and down right underneath Halemaumau. It actually comes from deeper under this area. So the pipeline is actually tilted, and these earthquakes are, based on the thinking of USGS, I would, and what they've described earthquakes in this area before, these are earthquakes of the magma coming up the conduit, really deep down, working their way up towards Halemaumau. So that's interesting. You know, that could be a sign. You know, it's a sign of some magma shifting underground on there. You know, I can't say that it's shifting in a sense where it's going to come up more magma, or if there's less coming up. I can just say that it's actually shifting. Right, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. You know, if these kind of concentrate and we see them moving, like, you know, towards the summit and getting shallower, then we'll know, okay, there's some magma coming up enough that's actually causing cracking of the rocks around it. That would be a big pulse, right? So that would be not what we want to see at this point. We're kind of tired of this eruption already. But that would be what to look for, essentially, is that kind of pattern of it going shallower and then towards the summit, and that would be the pipeline of it kind of going up. I don't think it's going from the top down, right? There's nothing in between here. It's not like the collapse of the summit is, you know, I mean, you know, in theory, it could affect this pipeline to some degree, but I have a hard time believing it's going to affect something that far down on the other side of it without affecting something in between first, you know? So, but we don't know much about the dynamics of the conduit, so, you know, but that's kind of how these are actually connected in here. So just to answer you guys' question, that's where those earthquakes are basically coming from. But what you might notice is that there is, let's zoom into the summit here. They've been actually marking those collapse explosions with a little diamond signal, and we're actually missing one. Oh, there's an earthquake happening right here at my location right now. Well, that was maybe a brief one. I've stopped shaking already, but let's go back to I haven't gone here yet, but this is our seismic signal in GPS and tilt. The seismic is showing up on the tilt signal. It's been one of our cleaner signals. So here, let me go up here. One thing, I gotta zoom out so you guys can actually see it. So one thing you guys can see is we have had a lot of drop, and there has not yet, unless that was actually the one I just felt. I suppose it's possible, but it didn't feel quite big enough. That might have been the next big earthquake. I don't think it was. We have a much longer cycle in between this pattern. Let's go to the weak view so you guys can see it a little better. All right, so you can kind of see it's actually a longer pattern than before. You know, this is being pointed out to us, right? So it might be something more like 30 hours, you know, or more in a 30-hour range as opposed to maybe we were at a 25-hour range a couple weeks ago. So it's a little bit longer now. We're having these kind of in-between events, these little step-downs that are occurring. in between, in between. We had a big one of those. We actually had a fairly big earthquake earlier this morning that did a lot, a good amount of shaking, but it wasn't anywhere near the size of one of those fives. It was just kind of, an interesting adjustment. And you can see that we're having a lot of earthquakes now and building up. So you would expect we're going to have another one of these big ones soon. The fact that this thing is getting a little bit longer in duration, might mean something for changing the dynamics of the summit. Maybe the collapses are kind of slowly slowing down, just a little bit more. But that's the pattern we're seeing. We'll keep an eye on what this change might actually mean. But I think people in Volcano are getting a little nervous. I've heard a lot of people say, Brad Lewis among them, that until that big earthquake comes, you really can't go to sleep or rest or feel like there's any kind of ease. We've had some reports of from Ken Boyer of some noises, almost like some booming sounds coming from the summit area. So I'm not sure about that. And studying some of these summit events recently, we see that they're when those rocks are kind of after they're cracked, there seems to be an increase in the gas emissions. So I'm not sure if it could be gas venting or gas popping out. What would actually make any kind of boom like that? So we're not sure about that. Let me see who we got on here. Oh, thank you guys for all joining us. Good to see you guys, Bruce and Mick and Kalapana guys. So yeah, kind of recap what I've been talking about. I haven't talked much about the north flow, but that flow that was going towards Cinder Road appears to be mostly stalled. Going south instead now. I might have cut out there for a minute, but most of the flow might have is going to the south now, around the west side of Kapahua Crater, and is within about a mile of the ocean over there, which means that it's going to be getting overrunning the Kīlauea area, most likely by morning, sometime in the morning. So we try to do some quick estimates of the flow, the advance of the flow, given some of the earlier photograph by Bruce, the later photograph by Scott. Trying to get that on a map, thanks to the guys at Hawaii Tracker, Dane DuPont in particular, did a lot of those calculations, and our back of the envelope numbers, this is nothing official obviously, but our back of the envelope calculations is something around, it's moving about something like 400 feet an hour, and being somewhere in a range, something like 4,500 feet from the shore, that's maybe not exact, but we can call it less than a mile. And at that rate, we could put it sometime, in a maybe 7 o'clock in the morning range if it would go to, according to math. Of course, it's not going to do that exactly. There's a chance it might actually stall out and flatten and spread a little bit. But, given the slope there, it doesn't seem that's likely to happen, given the fact that it's going to pool against the other flow to the side. One of our other contributors, Hawaii Tracker contributors, Ryan Finley, was saying earlier, he remembers driving the road down towards the worm ponds, and that it's actually, there's some areas that are fairly steep, so as much as I look at that map, I want it to be flat there. I want that thing to kind of pile up and spread out. It doesn't look like that's going to happen to me. Yeah, I'll show you guys the photographs once again if you're just joining us now. Kind of just to close off our summit segment here. Everyone's still waiting for the big one, and we haven't seen much change in a vertical drop over here. It's still going down, so we're still waiting to see if the pattern actually holds, to see if in fact we have a longer, more like a 30-some hour pattern instead of a 20-hour pattern, 24-hour pattern, something like that. Okay, let me go back to my photos here that I've compiled for you guys. Maybe I'll show you guys this first and some up here. This is a flow from a couple days ago, the one that's been creeping to the side towards Kīlauea, right over here. From the photographs from Scott Wilson of Aloha Aviation, we estimate the flow is more or less in the area the flow front's an area right in here right now. It's come all the way down from up here to here now. So since the flow is down here, it's going to advance inevitably down towards the worm ponds. So let me go back to the beginning of my photo sequence here in just a minute. Let me line it up. Start off with Bruce's photo, Bruce Omori photo, extreme exposure. Flying with Paradise helicopters. They took this photograph this morning showing the flow where it actually had pooled and backed up. There's a blockage right here. At that point, lava was still leaking through. By now, even though it was leaking through, it seemed to be moving fairly slowly. By now, almost all this is stopped, and it's all going out in this branch, and so the whole volume of Fissure 8 that's made this lava channel that's been stable for the last month now is diverted to the south and is headed downhill towards the worm ponds. Listening to Steve Brantley at the meeting today from the USGS, he was saying their estimates of the output of Fissure 8 nowadays is in the order of 50 to 100 cubic meters per second of lava is what's coming out of there. That's a huge amount, especially for Kīlauea. There's a shot of Fissure 8 this morning through all the fume, and you can see Bruce caught this nice little funnel forming here. Yeah, these things are fairly temporary. They kind of form and dissipate, but you guys can't see in a photograph how the weather is really affected by this. And this thing has been creating its own weather for a while. Especially when the winds are fairly weak, it seems to create these interesting phenomena of like little funnel clouds. We also see massive clouds rising up, big rainstorms occurring downwind of these things, right? So it's been really fascinating. Someone at some point can really learn a lot from this, how this thing generates its own weather. This is a shot by Bruce looking down at the area just downslope of the blockage. So the blockage is happening here. Kapolei crater is the one. It's actually over here on the side. The main channel that's been active for most of the last few weeks is this one. Actually, in the area right here, it went over that way and down over here before we had our first blockage occur about a week ago right in here. That's when the flow backed up and spilled around, dropping into the old channel over here. We had lava falls present here for several days. That's done now. It was leaking out from this side as well. It was kind of coming together and filling that channel. In this photograph, there's still lava moving through here, but what I was saying earlier is that the really beautiful pattern that's captured here in the photograph of these pieces of the crust stacking against each other like a giant train wreck. The front car crashed into something that wasn't moving, right? Normally we see when these flows are moving fast, this crust is like a continuous snake that just goes all the way down and kind of rides on top of that massive flow. And in this case, you can see that's kind of sluggish just by the fact that these slabs are kind of piling against each other, right? The one at the front's not able to move, and the one behind it piles up, and the one behind piles up. So what a fantastic photo that shows. This photograph from earlier today of the 2-day-old flow that's still creeping to the west. You can see it by the time that Bruce caught this photo, it's actually starting to impinge in the bay a little bit here in the second bay. But now this is no longer a concern because all this creeping is minor compared to the big flow that's coming down in this direction over here. So I'll show you guys the upper part of the channel. There were some spillovers up here. All the silver lava is spillover from before, so that's what actually was blocked and spilling over all through here. But the upper part was able to clear that blockage, reestablish the path, refill the channel, and kind of clear out all those blocks. Well, all those blocks went downriver, which is perhaps why the down channel, the downslope nozzle that goes around Green Mountain, Kapolei crater, is now clogged and the flow is splitting to the south instead, because all that stuff is collecting in there. Here's another perspective, looking more down the axis of the channel. Downslope is that way, so all this stuff kind of clogged up here, spilled over everywhere. This whole thing actually drained out. The flow pushed back through it and refilled it again, and so you can see now it looks as if, the flow had never left the channel, in fact, right? We see some kind of steeper, darker colors on the edges. That could be the fact that the channels are a little lower. It's possible that when these floods are pushing through, that we can either pile up this debris at the bottom of the channel, or clear it out, or move it around. So the channel depth can be maybe varying because of that a little bit. We also have noticed after the lava recedes that quite often the walls of the channel break. They kind of slump off into the channel. That adds more material that's being pushed and kind of clogged through the system. But even here, it's all moving through the channel. Still able to move through there. And now we'll jump to Aloha Skies Aviation and Scott Wilson's photographs. And this photograph taken before dark shows here, this is the old two-day-old flow. We're looking to the south right here. It's going in the ocean right through here. This right here is our new flow. There's the edge of it there. All this is what came out on the last day in advance since the photograph this morning. And this is not the best perspective to compare, but we'll compare it here. And maybe from this perspective we can tell. That earlier flow was down an area over here. You can kind of look at this plot of land. It was kind of area down in here when Bruce photographed it this morning. So it could be wrong. It could be more over here. This maybe it's not the best perspective to compare against either. But in any case, you can see this close-up of the new flow wrapping around the old one. One thing to note, it does look like this new flow is actually thinner. I can see like there's an edge here. You can see that the two-day-old flow is higher than the new flow that's kind of pouring out. Let's move on to the next photograph by Scott. So here you can clearly see the blockage in the channel happening on the west side of Kapua Crater. The flow is swinging around to the south. It's now become well established in this upper section and is establishing this lower section to where it can basically do what happened in Kapoho over here at Kapoho Bay, where it filled all that area that can happen down in the direction of Ahalanui next. So that's the depressing part about the news today. These flows have been setting off brush fires. Here's the edge of a brush fire ahead of this flow. It's easier to see in the darkness. But let's move on to this perspective over here, which I think is quite telling, because here we see our blockage. The flow we're talking about was over here, going towards the ocean, and Kokala, Halanui, Secrets over here. And the blockage that is occurring here is now cut off any amount of lava that's going to be glowing in here anymore, right? Well, we see a little bit of glow in this upper part of the channel before it makes that bend. And that's it. There's one spot there. The ocean entry is still going, right? The pipe may be still draining. I kind of imagine this like when you have your long garden hose out and you turn off the faucet at the front. There's that's going to still trickle out the open end at the other end for a little while until you drain out the hose, right? So it could well be that this channel is drained out in this area, but there's still lava moving through the system that's able to get to the ocean entry when this is taken. Overall, the imagery we've been getting from the ocean entry from the boats this evening appears to be less. This morning, we have reports already of, even though we had a fairly wide ocean entry still, there was no single robust plume. It was, in fact, kind of spread across the area. So by tonight, it seems like we have a lot less areas of glow even, so it's kind of dying off as far as we can tell, at least. Well, maybe not this exact section, because this is a section of the two-day-old flow, so this is going to actually take longer to drain it than the section that's farther over around the corner. And we can't quite see. Yeah, maybe right in here is actually the two-day-old flow right here, and this may actually be the remains of the more recent established entry. I'm sorry, the older established entry right here. So yeah, that flow is going. If we look at our descent map once again, that flow front is kind of in here, moving down this direction. The blue line is a path that's going to go on a first order. So we can probably ignore everything else at this point. The flow basically comes towards the edge of the one that just got put in place, and it kind of pinches together. And even if it were to go farther over, you see all these paths all lead to Ahalanui, to the warm ponds, to the surf spot, and to the school. So given the rate of advance, we think it might actually be sometime in the morning. Obviously it's not going to go exactly to our back of the envelope calculation, but we're guessing in the area of 7 a.m. might be when this actually happens. So that's it, you guys. You can probably tell I'm losing my voice a little bit. The earthquake storms. Okay, so let me look at the earthquakes page again and see what you guys are seeing. Let's see what's popped up here new on our earthquakes page, and let me zoom it out and get it ready here for you guys. Let's zoom out of our, get some perspective on our map here. Okay, so we were talking about these earthquakes down here in Pahala. So there's a bunch of earthquakes up at the summit. Those are kind of normal, right? Now, you know, the pattern of it's taking a little bit longer today. We're still waiting for the big one to happen there today, that five-pointer. But the ones that people have been feeling are these really deep ones over here. So there's this one over here, let me tap it. That shows up as 35 kilometers down, 2.7. Tap the one next to it. 3.1, 32 kilometers down. 3 points. No, that's the one I just tapped. So there's a new one since I just looked. But there are now 4 of them kind of clustered in the area right in here. They've been happening. So this is actually the path of magma. So there's a conduit, right? It's almost like a straw-shaped thing, something along those lines that's feeding from deep over here, but it's tilted towards the top in this direction, right? So it's coming up those 35 kilometers across, but tilted and going towards Halemaumau that way. So this is actually part of the Kīlauea magma supply over here. This magma has got a pathway up the conduit that already exists. The fact that there's earthquakes down here is hard to interpret as far as what that means, whether it means there's more magma or less magma there. We just know that the pressure is different down there. I think it's really hard to say much about those apart. You know, if we were to expect that magma is coming to the surface from the pipe down deeper down, we should see a pattern kind of potentially continuing this way. It may not hold all the way. There are certain areas that actually get more earthquakes than others. You know, I'd have to look at that in a little more detail to see exactly how that would come up. But right now, that just shows me that the summit conduit is active in some way, but I don't see any direct impact right now of what's happening over here. You know, if there was nothing happening now and we saw these earthquakes happen now, and then we actually had over the course of days a whole bunch more of them, then we'd say, okay, we're going to build towards an eruption, something like that, you know. But a few down here just by themselves, not coming from top down, or, you know, we just have to wait and see what actually is happening. We do know that the rate of lava into the summit is not exactly constant. You know, that's the assumption we make to kind of keep things simple, right? But you know, it can actually come up in globs, right? You know, it's not exactly alike, but I imagine like a lava lamp, how it has some of the globs come up fat, and then sometimes you have like a skinny path, and sometimes you have a gap, and so, you know, that's not exactly how it works, but it's a way you can think about it. As far as, like, you know, how much magma is coming up the pipe, and you can imagine if there was a fatter bunch, it might actually kind of push against the walls and have a signal, something like that. And likewise, a thinner bunch could come through and not press against it as much and allow the walls to kind of collapse in a little bit, right, because it's so far down. So that's why you can't really tell much. So the pipe is this is essentially from the from the hot spot down at the crust, the base of the crust of the earth. That's why these are so deep. And then this is where it's coming through the crust of the earth, inclined, and coming out all the way up here at Halemaumau. So that's what's happening with the earthquakes up there. I know that it's getting really trying for everyone living in Volcano Village up there. It's been, you know, kind of glancing a little bit of what Ken and other guys are talking about up there, how there are so many earthquakes, it might be even hard to sleep. You know, I was in Volcano Village this morning for 5 minutes in a parking lot, parked making a phone call. In that time, I felt 3 earthquakes, 5 minutes. So that really kind of, you know, opened my experience a little bit to what it's like to actually live up there. You know, I myself, where I am now, is something like 8 miles away. You know, so it's not nearly the same effect as you guys have up there. Right. So, I see Doug's asking new fissures. No, those earthquakes do not indicate new fissures. That's just the magma kind of coming through the pipe up towards Halemaumau. All the magma that comes through Kīlauea all goes through Halemaumau first, right? Even the fissures that came out of Leilani, everything went through Halemaumau first. That's why the lava lake overflowed in April, before it moved down the rift zone to erupt in Leilani. There is a rift zone on the southwest rift zone of Kīlauea. So the southwest rift zone goes this way over here. It's typically less active than the southeast rift zone, but it can become active, especially after, you know, a big change in eruption like this. But if that were to happen, we'd see a similar pattern as we saw in Leilani. You'd see the earthquakes starting here, then moving in a direction of the eruption near the surface within that ½ mile to 2.5 mile depth, somewhere in there. And that's the same pattern as we see in the East Rift Zone going all the way over here. Yeah, so that's the earthquake pattern. There's a couple up in Mauna Loa as well. We like to, everyone's looking at those. Let's see what that one actually is. That one's showing as a 2.9 at 0.1 kilometers. So 0.1, that's basically on the surface. So that's not a magma coming up because it, well, I suppose it could be because that's actually 0.1 kilometers above sea level, and that, you know, so like about 100 meters. So it's actually 4 kilometers below the surface of the volcano, right? That earthquake just happened, but it's a 2.9. And really, you know, as I've been saying, unless we see something that looks like that, a cluster of earthquakes together in time and space in Mauna Loa, then, you know, we can assume it's just something actually settling. So Mauna Loa is not erupting despite having earthquakes, just re-emphasize that. The Action Zone volcano, where everyone is anxiously awaiting that 5-pointer to come soon. So there you have it, guys. We'll make another update tomorrow. The most relevant thing, of course, is, you know, the fact that depending on when you guys watch this, if you're not watching this live, if you're watching this in the morning, it could well be that the warm ponds are under imminent threat by that point. And that's what we really wanted to share with you guys tonight. You know, I debated even coming on to let everyone know, get depressed about that tonight, you know, but I think it's better we all come to terms with it now before it actually happens, you know. So that's where I'm putting my energy tonight myself, making my peace with that lava flow, and it's the fact that it's heading towards Halanui, Kuokala, secrets, you know, seemingly with not much choice but to run right over the thing. So yeah, guys, we'll look forward to some better news tomorrow. We'll see what happens. You know, at least there's no people living there. I know we all treasure that spot, and we all, you know, we all feel it as if we all did live there, right? That's kind of the feeling I think we all have about that, right? We all, that's also part of home to us, that we don't want to lose, but is gonna happen. So. All right, guys, well, I'll be in a better mood tomorrow, you know, despite it, but, you know, it's been kind of wearing, so, all right, you guys, I'll let you deal with it on your own now, and mahalo, you guys. Thanks for staying up with me, and stay classy, Puna. Aloha.